During the time of you were working there, any particular advances in the treatments of PTSD that you found was just a huge step forward?
Well, yeah, first of all, there were several areas that I kind of found the niche for in my specialty. I got in an area called well, they used to call it multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder,
Right.
which is really kind of an extreme form of PTSD, in which an individual is experiencing overwhelming trauma that goes above and beyond their ability to cope. So their personality, they develop an altered personality to deal with the trauma that they're experiencing and to adapt with different characteristics, personalities that are more appropriate to deal with that situation, and also retain the memory to protect the primary personality from the experiences that they did. Well, I first found an individual, with dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder. When I was in the military, actually, there was a wife of one of the active duty person who had it, and it was up until the time that I started working with these individuals, there was such a paucity of individual case reports. I would have to say that there was less than 100 cases in the history of psychiatry.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I discovered one in the military, and then one in my private practice who had 23 personalities, and there was nothing available to give me guidelines to treat. Up until then, all that they said were basically anecdotal descriptions of the person and basically kind of traditional psychoanalytic kind of treatments. And that lasted, 20 some odd years. And I thought there has to be a better way. So I created an approach to deal with these individuals. And I think a lot of it had been based on my experience dealing with PTSD. Basically, the approach it was that I first had to establish a diagnosis. She came in one day and she said, "Doctor, I've had this dream last night." I said, "Well, tell me about your dream." And she said, "Well, there was this little girl and she was terrified. And for reasons I'm not quite sure, I said, 'Is she here now?' And she went into this kind of like this sort of a fugue state. And she started talking, different voice."
That intuitive moment.
Yeah.
I mean, where did that come from?
I sensed something different in her. I sensed a different affect, a different, different gestures. And so I'm not really quite sure what made me ask her that, but I did. So then of course, now that I made this diagnosis, what do? My concept was understand the illness. Why did these personalities come about? They came about because of certain traumas that overwhelmed the primary personality. So in order to resolve these issues, much like you would with PTSD, you got to get to know the individuals. You got to get to know their stories, win their trust. And then you had to re-experience the trauma so that those memories become incorporated into the primary personality's memories. So you had to go through a catharsis. It was very difficult for the patient, difficult for the therapist. And once that person can have co-consciousness, in other words, those memories become incorporated into the primary personality, then there's no longer a need for the alternate personality.
So you had to go through 23 different personalities with this guy.
I did. And this was this whole treatment per se took about 2 years.
Wow.
But up until then, the cases that were reported were 23 years, civil and the cases.
Right.
Once I got some acknowledgement about what my treatment was, I started getting an influx of referrals.